If you'd like to contact the show, send us an email at liveonfourlegspodcast@gmail.com or get involved in the conversation on social media. Join the Pearl Jam Podcast community group on Facebook or follow us on Twitter at liveonfourlegspod.
And you on vocals, good singing. How's everybody feeling? You're singing good. You're getting that holding the high note kind of buzz in your head. It feels good. Actually, did we hear there was a singing contest? There's a karaoke contest. Who could sing Pearl Jam songs? Maybe something happened in town a couple days ago. I wish I would have known. I truly think I think I could have placed a strong third. I had a good night before I started drinking. But if the winners are here, they should come up. I'm curious to see. Oh, no, not yet. Oh, you're here. Hi. You save it. No, save it. I'm scared. No, go. I'm not ready to meet you yet. I'm nervous. You make me nervous. And away we go.
You're listening to Live on Four Legs, the live Pearl Jam podcast experience, featuring
Mr. Stone Gossard. Fucking Cameron in the drum. Mr. Boom Gasper. You can call me Al, you can call me Ed, you just fucking call me, why don't you?
Hey everybody now, welcome to Live on Four Legs, a definitive live Pearl Jam podcast, and today's episode is capping off of our festival month that we've been doing in July. A couple of shows that you might have heard before, like Mudfest, and then a couple that maybe you didn't listen to, like one of the first Lollapalooza shows from 1992 that we did at Shoreline Amphitheater, and then last week we did the Heineken Opener Festival that happened in 2010. Today, we kind of weave them in and out a little bit. Today is going to be an important one because this is Telluride. And I think Telluride has to be one of those shows where all you have to do is mention the name and people are going to know what exactly happened. There are not a lot of other shows that went through the 10 or 9 song acoustic open, and the ones that we kind of know by heart, Red Rocks, the Gorge, Mansfield, Santa Barbara, those all happen. And we get this again, kind of a throwback to the first time they did it, which was also in Colorado. So kind of cool connection there. But also you have to think, every time they've seen to do this, they've added in brand new songs, they've added in rare songs, and essentially some songs that they haven't played in a very, very long time. And this one fits that theme 100%. Let's get talking about it. Unfortunately, it's not a visual podcast because for this, it probably should be, but we'll do our best to paint the picture. Randy Sobel over here, John Farrar over there.
Hello.
Hey.
Yeah, I remember watching the setlist thread for this, watching the songs pop up, and just being like, oh my God. Because I was getting ready to go see them at Wrigley 6 weeks later. And just being like, man, if this is any indication of where they're at right now, this is going to be really special. And just being blown away by, especially people know they play Angel here in the 7th spot for the first time since 1994. And I remember when that came up, it was one of those things where like, wait, what? And just like trying to scour for the video the next day, finding it, and like again, it's just one of those moments that this band can do where like you think you've got them figured out, and we've seen that on this tour as well. You think you got them figured out, and then they throw a curveball at you, and this is definitely one of those. It's a good one. They were on a good run that summer of 2016.
Yeah, absolutely. And this was the precursor to the Fenway shows that I went to. And what's interesting here is some of the rare stuff that they brought out at Fenway was played here as well. So it was on their mind then. Like Society was played at night 1 and Angel, like you mentioned, was night 2. And back then it was really tough for me to say that I knew Angel as a song. I didn't really know it that well. I knew that it existed, but I couldn't tell you what the lyrics were. I couldn't tell you how the song progressed. I knew it was a Dave A song, and I knew it was a little kind of offbeat on the chords, but I think I remember checking my phone and like listening to the lyrics that Ed was singing, "I'm right by your side," and saying Pearl Jam, "I'm right by your side," and finding out the song. I'm like, oh, okay, that is Angel. And then I start texting a couple of people who are like, it wasn't even a holy shit. It was, wait, they still do that? That could be a thing that's in the running to actually happen. And I think the only other song that you could say after all of this time that has gone so long, I guess the era that it belonged to, Angel kind of being in that 1993, 1994 zone, would be like Just a Girl. It would be like Just a Girl being played. I don't think, well, maybe one or two people out there that I know mention Just a Girl very often, but I don't think anybody would expect something like that. And I don't think the band would do it either. But as we've seen, the guy that wrote the song, Angel, wasn't there for this, obviously, and they decided to do it anyway. And it made for a really nice moment and a throwback to their history. And we're probably going to talk about it a lot when we get to it, but it just goes along with all of the rarities that are happening here. We got Santa Cruz that was turned into Telluride, but Santa Cruz, another Christmas single, only got played at one Bridge School show. And the debut of Society, too. Like, you get some real gems in this one. If you're following along closely and you're seeing this as it goes on, yeah, you're pretty damn impressed by it.
And I think a lot of it has to do with the location and the scenic area that they're in, because we've obviously you mentioned the Gorge and Red Rocks and things like that, and this is up there with those locations, and that there is a little video on YouTube of some of it, and you get to see like the mountains and the trees and all the scenery right around everything. Ed likes that stuff, and when he sees that they're playing a place like that, he's going to go out of his way to make it special, and it's got to be cool for them to look out and see the crowd and see that instead of seeing like a corporate banner arena or baseball field, whatever. To be outdoors and to be in that environment is going to lead to some special nights, and we've seen that before, and this is no exception. It absolutely belongs in that list of places.
It's not surprising that they came out and did this. It's not surprising that they started sitting down, because say you were to start even outside of starting with your actual typical openers like Release and Long Road kind of stuff, if they started with Corduroy, if they just hit you right away, I don't think that would have captured that vibe at all. So they did it right, and that's what Ed just does so perfectly, is he's able to kind of look out the window and say, all right, well, this is this situation. We're going on. They start playing at, I think, 7:18 specifically. That was the exact time that they started, and it stayed light out for, if not over an hour, very close. It was a while, like, and the weird thing, especially in this era of Pearl Jam, going back to the last decade or so into now, there haven't been a lot of shows where Pearl Jam is played in the daylight. It's something really refreshing to see, and you can just see it on their faces. They are so excited to be there. They're happy, they're having fun, and there's just a cheerfulness coming from Ed during all of his speeches, and he just really wants to interact. He really wants to connect with the crowd, because a place like that and a spot like that, it feels like you're all close-knit and you're all there to become best friends.
It all came together at this show to make for a really special experience, and this is one that I wish I'd been there. It would have been insane.
Well, speaking of that, there is somebody that was there, and we got a chance to talk to her. That's right. As John and I were preparing for these big, gaudy ballpark shows, a lot of other people were preparing for this little ride festival here, and one of them is our Horizon Leg patron, Jenny G. She didn't have that far to go. She's from Colorado. So why don't we get a little bit of her story, because her Horizon Leg profile is coming out later this week, so we might as well get a little bit of a preview from that. So here's Jenny.
So my daughter was 11, my son 14, and my daughter is a music person, my son not so much. But we decided, this is a festival, it's not going to be as big of a crowd. This would be a good show to take the kids, because not expecting to get close or anything like that, figured it would be a pretty laid back environment. We drove up with our Pearl Jam buddy, my husband's best friend since elementary school. And we drove up with him and his son. Our first experience, we've been driving for 8 hours. We get into Telluride. We pull up. My husband goes in to get the hotel. And I'm sitting in the back of the car. Our friend Rich is out with the kids. And I look out and I see a guy in a hat with a little boy. And he's taking pictures. And Rich looks at me and he's like, is that Mike? Is that Mike? And I jump out of the car. I almost knock him over. I felt really bad. I jump out of the car and I just go, "Hi, Mike." And he turns around and we had a quick little conversation. It was him and his son. He's like, "Are you in for the show?" And we said, "Yeah," blah, blah, blah. He was super nice. The whole time my husband is in, he could see what was going on and he's looking, he's like, "Oh, really?" His dream is to see them walking around, right? He's gone to 20 plus shows and here it is. I think at that point it was my 5th show or something like that. And he's like, and she's already meeting the band. I bet you could just see him. So I asked if we could take a picture. And then I was like, never mind, you're with your son. It's cool. I understand. He's like, no. Me and my daughter and Mike, we have a picture of us.
That's the one that you use for your profile.
Yeah. So that to me, just that was the initial experience. And then from that point on, you couldn't have a better concert experience. I couldn't, as a parent bringing their kid to their first show, and my daughter and my son and our friend Rich's son, as a first concert experience, it was phenomenal. We ended up being on the rail. The kids were troopers. They sat on the rail from 11 o'clock on.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's tough.
Yeah, it is tough. And they did a great job until 15 minutes before Pearl Jam was supposed to go on. All the kids, they're like, "Yeah, we have to go to the bathroom." And I was like, "What?" They're like, "Yeah." I was like, "Really?" They're like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Okay. Parent first, fan second. Gotcha." Okay. So I take them through, go to use the restroom, come back, make our way back through the crowd. My daughter, there's only a couple times where people wouldn't move out of the way as we were coming through, to which my daughter just started whining for her dad. And everyone moved out of the way.
It's always a good trick.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, all right, whatever. Got back to where we originally were, which was on Stoneside. My favorite kind of fun fact with that is that if you go to the Pearl Jam website and you look at the pictures from the Telluride show, there's a picture of my daughter with her sign that says, "Very first Pearl Jam show, can you play Of the Girl?" or something like that. That was what her sign said. She did not get Of the Girl, which is fine. But just that whole experience. So when the band started, when they came out, Ed came out and looked around, immediately spotted her and waved to her. And I was like, "You waved to you?" And she's like, "No, he wasn't waving at me." I was like, "Yeah, wave back." And so she waved back and he waved again. So that was cool. He acknowledged her. She sang all the songs. She knew all the things. They played a Tom Petty song and she knew all the words to that. She's a music person. So anyway, my favorite part, I have a couple favorite parts, but after Society, Ed walked over to in front of my daughter and was trying to get the security guy's attention. And his back was to Ed, so he didn't know. And so I said, hey, he's trying to get your attention. And the security guy turned around, and Ed told the security guy to give his pick to my daughter, which was super awesome. And then a little bit later, and so my daughter had a Smile shirt on. She really liked that song, Smile. And so then cut to a little bit later, Ed plays Smile. He's like, and my daughter's going to town, and he sees my daughter like going to town, like just she's singing all the words. And I swear it's like he's done with his harmonica, and I swear he's like gonna give it to her. Like he was looking at her, and then he like realized, oh, I already gave her a pick. I can't. And so he went off to someone like who wants it and gave it to somebody else. And so I was like, that was still a cool thing. Like he acknowledged her being into that song, and then cut to must have been during porch. He's passing his wine around. He's sharing his wine, and he gets to where I am, and I'm in back of my daughter. I'm kind of caging her in just to make sure that she's okay. And I have my cup out, and he looks up and he stops and he sees her, and he's like, "Oh, hey!" And, like he realized like where he was and talked to her, and she's like, "Hey." There's nothing special about anything that she was doing other than singing along and being a kid at a show. To me, it was just a really cool thing that she had those interactions on her very first concert, and it was a safe place, and it was it was fun, and not too many kids, I think, can say for their first experience that they had interactions with the lead singer, that he personally gave them something. And she hates it when I tell the story.
You gotta.
But I'm like, I have to, like, yeah, to me, I'm like, it's that's what made it the show. Like it was amazing for me because it was amazing for her.
Wonderful stuff, Jenny. Thank you so much. And again, if you want to check out her whole entire Pearl Jam story, head on over to Patreon. I usually make these episodes free, so if you wanted to go in and not spend any money on it, then you are free to do so. Once again, thank you, Jenny. Awesome stuff. The band comes out on the stage, and everybody takes a seat. Believe it or not, Ed says, "Good evening, campers," and we're on our way.
Wars divided, there's nothing left to subtract. Some words when spoken, they cannot be taken back. Walks on his own with thoughts he can't help thinking. The future's above. In the past he's slow sinking, caught up to lightning, curse the day he let it go.
This is the first and only time that Nothing Man was used as an opener. Believe it or not. How crazy is that?
That surprised me a little bit because it's become such a big crowd moment, a fan favorite, that I think it works great here. I'd love to see them do it, at an arena show. And, we had that kind of run of unique openers early in the tour, and I'm kind of surprised that this one didn't make an appearance. I think it would absolutely fit. I'd love to see it in the fall if they want to open with it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I'm, we're obviously for the 100th week in a row, we're going to tell you that we are doing an Evolution episode on Nothing Man. But here's the difference. We're done with all of the European tour stuff now. So we can say that and feel confident about it that we can give it to you guys pretty soon. So that's going to be the next thing that we put our big effort into. And yeah, it never got the opening slot, but a lot of those shows on the Lightning Bolt tour, number 2 or number 3, it was always in that mix. So it's it doesn't feel like a complete surprise that it's there, because it's been around that, and most of us kind of know it as like the mid-set cool down and spots and stuff like that, but use it as an opener is great. You know, you want a song that's going to set the tone, obviously, especially for the next 10 that are going to come your way. This was a real good one to start this off. I have maybe what could be a little theme throughout this first 10, and that is Stone's face while strumming. He doesn't get rid of his sour suck a lemon face this whole entire time, and it's very funny. I don't know if he's doing that on purpose, but he's got this like squinty eye kind of look the whole time that he's playing. And you love crazy Stone faces and crazy Stone motions.
Sure. It's his acoustic guitar face. I think
sure.
Playing electric guitar versus playing acoustic guitar are very different. The action is different on the fretboard. The strings are further apart because some of these songs are intricate songs. He's really given it the full Stone concentration face, and yeah, I love it. One of the most endearing parts of the band is just watching Stone when he's excited or concentrating, doing anything he does. They call it the duck face or whatever, but yeah, it's classic Stone here.
So we're going into song number 2 from this little beginning, and it's Pendulum, which everybody knows to be as the opener. Really, you can flip-flop these in most 2013 shows, and that would be your start. And what's interesting to me numbers-wise, that I'm looking at this for a lot of the songs later in the set, and we're going to bring it up later, but this is a good show to sort of benchmark what they were doing then and what they've done since up till now. And it's so interesting because obviously Pendulum was really the song that they were hitting pretty hard as the opener. This is the 40th time that they had played it. They've only played it 4 more times. That's it. Which is so crazy to think about that, because as we met, it was so common. It was so frequent. It was almost an inevitability. I think there was only one show on that 2013 tour where they didn't do it.
We haven't seen it at all. We didn't see it on the West Coast. We haven't seen it in Europe. So who knows? Yeah.
And only, I think, 3 times in that 2018 run. So it is interesting. And a lot of these that we can kind of dissect and wonder about are the lightning bolt songs that haven't been going back to, but there's going to be one in just a second that's a little bit more surprising than you'd think. I love this version of Pendulum. I thought this was great. I think that the build in this, you're feeling that rise on it, and the tone of the song is bringing that air of mystery. You got Mike doing a lot of stuff over there, Stone doing stuff on his side, and Ed's, I love those little ahs in the background, and even these have a little bit of bite to them, and when he starts doing that, that's really when the tempo starts to drive. I like this version.
Pendulum is kind of a quietly underrated song. I think it was originally, written for Backspacer. I think it would have helped that record greatly. And yeah, I like this version as well. I think especially, Matt is doing some little like flourishes at the end and adding some extra little stuff to give it a little bit more character. He does that because they're loose and they're relaxed, and that's the best environment for Pendulum. So actually, kind of like it here. One of the better performances on the night, I think.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue with that for sure. And you got, again, all these songs that are kind of fitting in here, and you're building up to the ones that are going to feel like the go-home ones, the one that you're going to talk about for, well, up until now, 6 years later. So we'll get to a lot of Ed stuff here. Ed talks a lot. I'm going to try and trim it down as much as I can to just the important pieces. So let's see where this goes. Ed says, I think we have time tonight so we can ease into our surroundings here. I know you've had a beautiful day, and as Kurt Vonnegut used to say, in places like this, it doesn't get better than this. Gonna share a story with you. The first time this group ever played in this state, it was in a place that was nowhere near as beautiful as this, but I was given a sticker of a radio station, and I put it in we don't have video for this part, but I'm sure that he's looking at a briefcase because he mentions the briefcase right here. It was apparently the first briefcase that he'd owned, and everybody kind of knows that that's his calling card, is to bring out the briefcase and carry his lyric sheets and any of his ideas in there. And as he says, rolling papers as well, which makes a lot of sense. And he said, look.
But I'd open this case, and this sticker was actually like, it became like it was like a window. It was like I was looking out the window at these mountains. And it had a word called Telluride, which I didn't even know what that meant. So now today, 20 plus years later, and it's not just a sticker, it's real life. So we're very happy. It's a destination. It's an accomplishment. So here's to the thin air.
That's, I think, a lot of the cheerful moments from Ed that you're getting in this. If you like a show where Ed is really connecting with the crowd and kind of going into the past a little bit, this is going to be it. And even not going into the past, but like what he was doing in that current time as well. There's a lot of that here. Thin Air, Sleeping by Myself, and Off He Goes are kind of the section here. There's one I really want to talk about. Thin Air, of course, going to be played. There's another one that's going to be played in a little while when we get to it that, you know, from the name makes sense of why they would play it. The altitude up there, and there's going to be moments in the show where Ed is going to have a little trouble breathing and a little trouble going from lyric to lyric, and I think that they did a really good job of picking the right songs to sort of not get tossed up with that, but we'll get to that when we get to that. I think real quick, Sleeping by Myself was the one that I was just mentioning out of Lightning Bolt songs where you got Pendulum that was played 4 times after the show. Sleeping by Myself, this was the 14th. It had been played 8 more times. That's a lot for Sleeping by Myself. I wouldn't have expected that. Let's just say that.
We've seen it, 3 times this year already, I think? 2 or 3 times?
2 or 3, yeah. I think it was 2, but it could have been 3.
It's fine. You know, Sleeping by Myself is not, you know, one that I go back to a lot. But, again, fits the mood. It's the right time, so sure.
I think Off He Goes is the moment that I'd like to talk about a little bit more because, you know, in this, and there are really 2 type of versions that you can really talk about with Off He Goes. There's the one that's more like this, where it's campfirey, it's anthemic, it's a little bit more positive, and then there's the one that's stark. And I know that you really like the stark version that feels like it's really fitting the personality of the character that is portrayed in the song. However, in this version, I really loved the aspect of the anthemic vibe and soaring vibe with this. I thought that there was a lot of heart to it. It felt like the band was really into this one. It felt like the crowd, especially up front, if you watch some of the videos, they were really singing along. They were really enjoying this. There's one point that was kind of a fun moment where Ed definitely does not remember the lyrics. Right. And everybody's trying to make up for it, and he has a laugh with them, and it just feels so casual. It just feels so casual as it goes along, and this one, it just had a very likable quality to it. It's a song that, in this moment, it made you smile and made you pretty happy to hear it.
He's yet to come back, but I've seen his picture. Boy, it doesn't look the same. I'm on the brand. Oh, now you know we go way back. Oh, I wonder about his inside. Oh, it's like you have to do being focused. Size he's been taken there. I don't know. There he goes with his perfect body on cash flows. Oh, and there he goes. Oh, and I run my eyes, for he has returned. Oh, it seems my preconceptions of what should have been. For he still
This is one of my favorite Pearl Jam songs, hands down. I do like the darker, kind of starker versions, but I like these versions a lot as well. I thought this was, in addition, a great performance. And coming off of Thin Air and Sleeping by Myself, I think you needed something like this to kind of get that campfire sing-along going again. So, yeah, I absolutely love this. Like I said, I thought the build was really good on it. I thought Stone was really good on it. It's just such a cool song, you know, something off of No Code that they hadn't really done before. And yeah, this is one of my all-time favorites. Absolutely. Love it.
I want to get to a little bit of the backdrop here before we get into the next Ed speech. It's got like this old saloon or barn look to it, very rustic. And you kind of look at it, and if there are really tight shots where you can't see the rest of the stage, you're like, whoa, are they actually playing? And the first thing I guess I thought of before thinking that is that it was interesting that they didn't have more of an open stage where you can see all the backdrop and stuff behind them, but obviously you need lights and things like that, but would have been kind of cool to see that. And now here's the speech. Ed mentions here, before he gets into the Kelly Curtis birthday party stuff, he mentions that he did mess up, so he acknowledges that, and if you breathe a lot, you're having to breathe to sing, then your head starts to feel like cream soda, and it gets a little fuzzy. And this kind of leads to him talking a little bit of story about a little situation with marijuana and smoking it at Kelly Curtis's birthday party, where, you know, they set up the plates and they set up the dinner, and every single seat had a joint next to it, which is just pretty awesome. And he starts to partake. Next thing you know, the food came.
And then the next thing you know, the food came, and I was looking at my hands, trying to pick up a eating utensil, and nothing was moving. And I had to concentrate real hard, and still nothing was moving, and I started to freak out a little bit. Looked around to see if anybody noticed. They didn't seem to notice. So I tried to play it cool, but I was like, I gotta lift my hands somehow here. So I kept thinking about it, and then I went to raise my left hand, and I finally got it, but my right leg went up. So then I had to figure out the equation. So if I try to move my left hand, my right leg's gonna go up. So maybe I need to move my left leg up to make my right arm move, which actually worked. But I thought, this is gonna be kind of tricky to pull this off for like a half hour. Matt Cameron, he could do that kind of stuff. He's ambidextrous. I was completely fucked.
Preface this whole thing by saying back in the day when marijuana wasn't legal, an ounce of pot would last him about 10 days. Now it lasts him a couple of years. So obviously he doesn't have the same repetition as he once did back in the day. But fun story. And then he says, later in the night, if I ask you to put your legs in the air, I'm actually talking about your hands. I was thinking to myself, just breathe. So this is the other one that obviously is fitting the idea of being out there in the altitude and the open air. And ladies and gentlemen, we do not have 2 for 2. There's no bass on this.
Yeah, why does the band leave? Like, they are in the middle of the show.
Ed asked the same question.
Yeah.
Whose decision is that? That has to be Ed's decision, right?
Right? Did they all just, like, randomly decide, like, oh, just breathe, we'll take this one off? Like, everybody just left? Like, what the hell, guys? Come on.
I don't know. And look, the evolution episode, whenever we get to it, of Just Breathe is going to be really interesting to pinpoint that moment where they decided that the bass wasn't good enough. But it does feel weird that we're not getting it here, especially since Ed's going to mention it. And look, Ed starts to get a little frustrated. This is a nice little moment here. It's pretty cool. He misses a note or two.
I come clean. Could you turn these fucking lights? Thank you. Fuck. Where was I? Am I the only person who plays on this? See a few more people over here. I could have maybe gotten away with it. So I got sunburn. Something about something. Then after that came the other thing about that. And then,
Yeah, imagine if more people were up there. How would that sound?
Yeah, it would have been better.
Probably have a pretty solid version of this song that fits in really well with the rest of these acoustic anthemic kind of songs.
Yeah, it's so weird that they would come play the first 5 and then leave and then come right back. Like, why? That's just so strange. It's not an encore break. Like, what were they doing back there?
I don't know.
Maybe they were inspired by the story and went to go all smoke joints back in the.
I don't think they need to be inspired by a story to do
True.
that. But yeah, I don't know if that's just a decision that Ed makes and says, "Look, let's change it up," and I'll kind of take lead on this. But even so, if you're gonna do an Ed song just by himself, could have chose Society, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Nobody would have minded that, right? It's not a
Very
Pearl Jam
weird.
song, so yeah, maybe a missed opportunity, but I don't think it destroys this nice little set that we have here. And now everybody's back on stage, and we talked about it before. Ed's going to talk about it here.
some of you may know that this is a rare occurrence, and some of you may not. But for those, I will just mention, it's maybe something we played once or twice, long time ago, and it was because, it was written by a guy who played drums with us called Dave Abbruzzese. Dave Abbruzzese. So we wish him well, and we're gonna play this one, I'm thinking about. Like an angel, fly over your house. Like an angel, pass out wishes. Like an angel, I remove the arrow. Angel, I will live for. I'm not living what was promised. I am close but can't enjoy.
Time ago was 699 shows. Almost 700. If you just waited till the Pemberton Festival, Ed, if you just waited, you would have gotten there, but they like the stats. I don't think they like them that much. If you were wondering, yes, Angel does hold the record of any song that has been brought back, and I'm thinking just original song, no covers, just original song that has had the most amount of time in between plays, 699. I think the song has just an interesting sort of way about it, and it makes me think of the kind of songwriter that Dave could have been, and we've seen little bits of pieces of him writing stuff here, you know, along with Stone and whoever else that was writing alongside of him. But I wonder if he had stayed around, would he have been more integral to the writing process of this? Because this does feel like a song that is a Pearl Jam song, and you wouldn't think that by the way that Dave sort of goes about his musical style and his influence and stuff like that. They do kind of stray a little bit from the rest of the band, but a song like this does fit in Pearl Jam's wheelhouse. So I wonder what other things that he might have had that could have done the same.
Yeah, I don't know. You know, I don't have enough of a sample size to really talk about Dave A as a songwriter. You know, this is such a weird kind of song, and obviously it was on the Fan Club single, and they really do a deconstruction of it here. It's not a faithful version. Like, Stone is playing a very different rhythm, especially early on, than what the official, you know, released version of the song was. If he hadn't have introed it that way, I would have been like, wait, what is this? And, you know, it wouldn't have been until the lyrics really started to be like, oh, okay, they're playing Angel, holy shit. But yeah, again, just one of the biggest, like, holy shit moments of the last, you know, 10 or 15 years, that this random festival, and we need to stop talking about how festival sets are so boring, because
this one is so much different.
They're busting this out here at a festival, and from the angle of the video they're watching, it seems like no one in the crowd knows what it is. They're pretty, like, blasé about the whole thing. They're like, oh, okay, this is nice. Like, there's not, like, if they did this, you know, in Seattle, or I'm sure when they did it in Fenway, there was, like, a big reaction of, like, oh my God, holy shit.
I honestly don't remember. I honestly don't think there was.
Yeah, because it's so out there and so weird. But I think it's super cool. And, you know, I love the song. It's like, you know, give me the weird Pearl Jam songs every day of the week. So I like this one a lot, especially when it kicks in at the end, like, kind of the round as it goes on, and he does a little bit of that here. But
the ending is very good. There's a triumphant finish to it, you know?
Yeah. Makes you wish they hadn't waited almost 700 shows to play it. What could have been?
If I asked you on July 8th, 2016, what would be one song that would be no chance in hell that they would ever do it, where would this lie on your list?
Top 5.
Top 5?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, just a big holy shit moment, and a cool version of the song, different from probably any other time they played it.
It's like you had a little bit of a taste of the big leagues and then spent the whole entire career in the minors. And once you turn about 40 and they need a couple guys up for injuries, they bring you back up and you get that glory moment. You're not going to stick around for a long time or anything like that, but it just feels good to be there. That is Angel.
Albert Pujols at the home run derby.
I mean, he beat Kyle Schwarber, man.
Yeah, okay.
I still think that might have been fixed, but anyway. Here's another one that we've never tried as a group before, but the atmosphere does call for it.
And we've been thinking about him since we got here, and this is, if there's any Chris McCandless fans out there. And we got a request from one of the locals yesterday, and then we tried to figure it out, and then out of nowhere, and I hadn't talked to her for quite a while, but 5 minutes before we walked up here, his sister texted me, so that was just crazy. So Chris would have been about 45 now. Chris is the young man from Into the Wild, and man, I can only think that if he could have found this place first, or I know he probably would have found it eventually. He would have been very happy here. It's a mystery to me. We have agreed with which we have agreed. And you think you have to want more than you need. Till you have it all, you won't be free. Society, you're a crazy breed. Hope you're not lonely without me. When you want more than you have, you think you need.
This is obviously not an Eddie Vedder song. This is Jerry Heron.
Yep.
And obviously it's so much more of a different vibe than you get on the soundtrack recording. And I think on the sound, it's so hard to grab that idea that they did there, because it's just, it's got a little bit more of a haunting, mysterious sort of progression to it. And I think right away when you hear the opening chords and you don't hear that little humming that he does in the background, that to me is the preparation that gets you in and gets you kind of excited for this. And not hearing that, it's a little part, but definitely is a little bit different than the way that Ed had constructed it for the record.
Definitely, and I like this a lot too. I love the solo that Mike does. Like, it's not flashy. This song obviously doesn't need an Eddie Van Halen solo on it, but I think it's cool. It really fits the song, and I think it has a little bit of like a Johnny Cash feel to it, especially at the end. It had that kind of that rhythm of like a Johnny Cash song. I thought it was very well done. I really like it.
Now, I don't know if in Ed's solo shows if he does it more like the soundtrack recording. Does he?
I think he does, yeah.
He does. Okay, so it's just taking it into Pearl Jam and finding a little bit of a different spirit with it, because, look, obviously they did that with Sleeping By Myself, too. It's an Ed song, he brings it to the table, and then they have to kind of switch it up. They don't do that as much with Setting Forth, because it kind of already had a full band on it, but it's hard to recapture the same sort of magic. So to them, I'm sure they're thinking to themselves, let's develop a new sort of magic. And I think that's the idea, that you don't get complacent with songs, and that you're just trying to figure out a way that it works for everybody and not just work for Ed, and maybe not even just work for the crowd. So it does feel like maybe they could have brought it up a couple more times, but I don't even know. And you never know. This one's obviously a popular song, so if anybody else has a request for it, which I'm sure they would at some point in life, then we'll just have to see how they feel. Maybe play this venue again. You never know. All right, the last two of this little set here is going to be Low Light and Small Town. I think these are pretty obvious choices for the Campfire set. I think these are two that sort of define the Campfire set. And Low Light, of course, it's setting up the path for the sun to set, which I don't believe was ready to go at that point. It was starting to go down, but I think it stayed light out for a little bit longer. And
that's why he was trying to stretch out on those stories. He was trying to wait for the sun to go down for Low Light. He was trying to time it perfectly.
Wouldn't be surprised, yeah. When you think of the Campfire songs, it's kind of akin to the way that Alive is going to be your big song for a normal set. It does feel like Elderly Woman is the song that is the go-to song of all the Campfire songs. And we've talked about this a lot, how this has a couple of different vibes to it, and sometimes when they get campfire-y, they can also get pandering. This was very good. This didn't get pandering at all. This just had the crowd. They knew what they were doing. Ed set them up for the moments. He didn't have to ask them anything. He didn't have to pump them up. This was just great. He says, sing to the mountains, and the crowd complies, and then that's the end of the Campfire. I thought that was a really fitting end with these two.
You get us So Glad I Saw This Place, which is always cool. And I think the chairs are actually gone for Small Towns. I think that, like, Small Town is, like, kind of the beginning of the main set. It's kind of like the reset for the set. Like, okay, here we go now. Fuck the chairs, let's go.
Yeah, the next one that you're going to get into is going to be the real transition that is more of a definitive version of where they are. It takes from Where They Are again with the whole theme of Into the Wild, and then you're going to go into your classic first couple songs, the ones that are going to get you pumped up in the set. But before getting into those, and it's funny because there's 29 songs in this, you can say the first 10 are one kind of set, the next 10 are another, and then the encore is kind of something different in and of itself. So it's got a few different personalities in the set. But Ed thanks the locals for allowing this to happen in the beautiful spot, and all those humans many years ago who found the spot and decided to stay without the help of Google Earth. That feels like an inside joke that none of us are in on. Just saying.
Yeah, definitely.
Let's pick up after ourselves, so they let us back again. And setting forth is the one from Into the Wild that is going to be used here. And it's a 90-second song, and I feel like that's used for a good transition into what's all about to transpire. It kind of fits in within the campfire a little bit. It fits in within the outdoor vibe. And it also leads way enough where you kind of ramp it up a little bit, and then you can go into corduroys and wacos and mind your manners kind of stuff. Very good.
Yeah,
very
it definitely
well done.
fits it's got that wide open feel to it. So yeah, they use it in spots like this. It's got that open air feel. So yeah, perfect segue into a really good version of corduroy.
Yeah. Are you ready for the traditional Pearl Jam show here? All fast, fan favorite, energetic songs. Corduroy is the perfect spark out of all these. They get to the bridge, and you can hear Ed saying, "Can we get this going in the back? Can we get this going in the back?" And I don't know how far the back of that crowd went, because a lot of the shots that we have only kind of show the front or the middle, but I'm wondering if it just kind of narrowed out and went deep all the way back there. And you do, on that shot, you are able to see everybody's hands go up. So the crowd complied to that, and it was a fun moment and a really good performance leading to a big mic solo in this.
Yeah, great solo. I thought, again, not super flashy, but very fluid and definitely fit the vibe of the song, and very melodic, and I was really impressed by it. And then, yeah, just great call and response with Ed in the crowd afterwards.
And Ed and Jeff jamming together, always a great visual. Doesn't happen a whole lot. And Why Go, Mind Your Manners, it's a good two-punch combo. We've seen them back-to-back recently. I want to say as recent as Paris. And before Even Flow, Ed is giving Stone a little bit of a nod. This version was pretty cool because you're hearing the sound coming off of Mike's guitar, and it was in one spot. It kind of sounded almost like a lawnmower starting or something like that. Like, I don't know if I've heard that sound before, or if that's just something we haven't touched on in a very long time. But I thought that was unique. And then Matt's going to get a solo in here too. This is a pretty fast version of Even Flow, pretty shortened up. I would say no more than 5.5 minutes, but powerful the whole entire way.
Goes out in the crowd to do his thing a little bit, and there's a woman in the front row who's just like completely blown out of her mind that he's right there in front of her doing this. Is pretty funny. But then he immediately takes off back to stage, and one of my favorite things that he does, whether it's in Black or Immortality Even Flow, is go up to that amp and really dig in and get aggressive with it and get some feedback going and kind of get into it. That's when he's kind of feeling it. He does that here, and it's really cool.
All right, Ed saying, good singing. How's everybody feeling? You holding that high note buzz in your head? It feels good. We heard that there was a karaoke contest to see who could sing Pearl Jam songs, something in town a couple days ago. Wish I would have known. I think I could have placed a strong third on a good night before I started drinking. If the winners are here, they should come out. Then the girls come out. And Ed is like, wait. No, not yet. I'm scared. not ready to meet you yet. As if like they are the new Eddie Vedder or something like that. And he's like, you make me nervous. I still have to wrap my head around that that's who won. There was no boys. And if you thought it took balls to sing like that. So pretty funny moment. And we're going to get to them in just a second. They're going to be in Daughter. These two back-to-back are, well, what do you know? The Jeff stand-up bass moments that we get from Versus. It's Glorified G and Daughter, and then a little bit of a WMA tag off of Daughter as well. It's like it's 1993 all over again, right?
Yeah, but I mean, come on. Let's not bury the lead here. You heard Karaoke Contest and you were wishing that they had been in Vegas and you would have gotten a chance to be this. You were a little jealous of this, right?
You're writing your own narrative, my friend. And that's never a good thing because you will always get caught up in lies. So, no, that is very incorrect. I did not care and did not think one way or another that Pearl Jam was ever going to find out about this. And if they did, wonderful. More power to them that they know that a bunch of people sang their karaoke songs while they weren't able to play a show in Vegas.
Would Ed have been able to finish higher than third in Vegas?
Well, we didn't. It wasn't a competition. We just did it.
Okay.
There was no competition to it. I don't know if he would have beat the Matt Cooper guy. He was pretty damn good, but it would have been interesting to see what his choice would have been because some of the pickings were a little bit slim after. We might have forced him into doing like Tremor Christ or The Fixer or something like that because all those were on the board instead of Corduroy, Evolution, the songs you'd expect. We might as well just cut into Daughter because that's the lead and not what I did in Pearl Jam karaoke or anybody else that night. He kind of looks at them and he's like, I'll come over, just you wait, don't be nervous. This is before the song. And they kind of creep up to Stone's mic until Ed's like, no, come here, come to the front. And
very awkward.
It is awkward. It is awkward. One of the girls seems kind of nervously excited about it. The other one just doesn't know how to handle herself. And I think that's probably either of these cases are going to be how most people go up there on stage. However, I don't even think that they were the stars of the show in this song. From stage left, you get very casually. This has happened very casually. You get this girl just walking out, like you've been there before, as they always say, when players score touchdowns or something, act like you've been there before. She's walking out like she owns the place. And then she goes up, she puts an arm around Ed, and she starts doing this, finger thing like, woo, woo. And very casually, some security guards come from behind her. And they're like, that's enough.
She's very quickly escorted off. Yeah, that was hilarious.
I really wonder who that is.
Yeah.
I'm thinking that maybe it was a friend of theirs. I don't know. It could have been someone else that just decided to take a chance and nobody
could have been the third place finisher who was trying to glom on to the spotlight a little bit.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe that's the villain in the story instead of the... Yeah, but security calmly takes her away and then, the girls kind of laugh, Ed kind of laughs, and they're just like, okay, what the fuck was that? Just fun, and I think that, like most things that happen in the show, just kind of bring out the best of the atmosphere. It's very loose, it's very casual. Nobody is thinking about like putting on this big arena rock show there. They're all just having a good time. They're all just feeling really chill. Then the girls say goodbye, and they have their moment singing the chorus. And we get into a nice little WMA tag here, which there's a lot to talk about, I think.
Yeah, it's almost full WMA. I love it when, and we saw this a couple of times on this tour where they would break into this and Jeff would start doing the WMA bass line instead of just kind of playing along with the Daughter chords. So,
right.
Yeah, I love when this happens. Another very cool moment.
Mike has a really echoey part in the transition that I thought sounded really, really good. And
really felt like WMA, the real song.
It did, yeah. Especially, I noticed the same thing with Jeff's bass line. Like, oh, that's not just a tag. That's legit going into it. And I'm wondering, and it could be for a couple of reasons, but Glorified G and WMA being in the set right here, I wonder, was there and obviously with everything that goes on and the mass shootings in America, yes, the answer is yes, there probably was. But I'm also thinking about like Colorado being a very gun-heavy state, so I don't know if that was on their mind, but they wanted to. But one of those things, you'd think, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think, going back to Columbine and, 99 or whatever that was, that, yeah, it's always going to be.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that's, of course. All right, 3 more songs that are going to finish out your main set. You got Sirens, Unthought Known, and Better Man. And Sirens could be another one to kind of go back to and say, this is really interesting numbers-wise. This was the 71st version of Sirens. It got played 4 more times and 0 in 2022.
Yep.
Fair or unfair?
Probably unfair.
I'd have to say so.
Yeah.
Especially that era, a lot of people attached themselves to that song. It really meant something to the fans. It really meant something to the band. And it started to blossom into something really beautiful with the ending and having the call and response and sort of Ed doing those vocal runs a little bit. And we don't get that here. It's a little bit different a version because you have it a little tuned down and it still sounds very good. And again, kind of coming off of Just Breathe from earlier. We haven't done a lot of these sets from this time period recently, so you're getting Sirens, which if you're doing a lot of 2013, 2014 all in a row, you're like, okay, Sirens, let's get away from this a little bit. But here it's refreshing to hear it again. It's got kind of a renewed energy.
And I like the lyric change too. He kind of goes back along with Glorified G and W. He says, hear the sirens not as much in this here town. So he's kind of, thinking about this idyllic, like, mountain town where, like, they can kind of get away from a lot of those urban environments he was talking about earlier and kind of, like, let loose. And I think he was thinking about that too here.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised for sure. Ed's mentioning there's a lot of things on our mind, things going on in the country and in this planet. And again, tie the gun songs to that for sure. Just wanted to say, even though we aren't talking about it, doesn't mean we aren't thinking about it. We came here, found an oasis together, and made something positive happen. Take that back and plant seeds where we need it. This one is To the Big Sky. Unthought Known. Very, very good version, I thought. Again, nice builds, had a purpose to it, soaring. You don't get much better for that atmosphere.
And it transitions right into Better Man, too. It's like they kind of go hand in hand. I think trying to keep the momentum going there. And yeah, Unthought Known's another one that, again, like, fits perfectly in the environment. Another wide open air song that really benefits from being played here, I think.
I put your love, black in the sky. Feel the sky, black hair too. Red times and white stars. See the path, got from you to walk home. For you to walk home.
Better Man is going to close out this set, of course, and the line changes to She lies and says she's in love with me. What could that be of? I have nothing to take away from that.
I have to go back to 1988 to find out.
Yeah, well, who knows, right?
Yeah.
It sounds like Ed gets a little bit tossed up during one of the lines here, and that goes back to, 20 songs in, the altitude is really taking a toll on you, and as he mentioned, it's getting tougher to breathe, and you kind of have to breathe and sing at the same time. Very difficult stuff. Outside of that, it's just a great version of this. I like a show-stopping version. And while we talked about last week's version being rushed, this was fast, but it also felt like it had that Better Man vibe where you could get lost in the song. You can get lost in the song, you hear the tag, and the tag kind of shuffles it up a little bit, and it just had a lot of heart to it. A big burst of energy at the end, like within the tag, big finish from that. Like, that's this kind of version of this song that really makes this one of their best live songs, and not like we saw last week, which was just, okay, let's play a song as fast as we can to say we got it on the set list. I know I'm harping back on that a little bit, but I wanted to bring in that comparison to show you where the changes lie.
And also it made me appreciate the kind of different show that this is, and putting Better Man at the end of a main set is just very, very good. And when was the last time, Porch and Rearview Mirror weren't played at a show?
It is crazy, right?
You don't get either of those here. And the thing is, they're not needed. I think Porch here would have been a little overwrought. It would have been a little bit maybe too much for the place. I think, sometimes Better Man is the better choice, no pun intended. So I like that they kind of were thinking outside the box here, and, fits in with the vibe of the show and kind of the songs that were played, and some of the songs that are still yet to be played. But yeah, I wish they would give this a chance more often. We have seen it a few times, and, they opened with it the one time this year. But there's no reason that Porch has to be, the all-time main set ender. Let's mix it up a little bit.
Preaching to the choir, I think the same thing.
Yep.
And, it seems that they are very, very attached to that song, especially the one time, I believe it was Krakow, of course, where they played it number 2. Like, they couldn't even just lifted it from the set. They had to play it. It was mandatory that they did. It was the only song outside of Alive that got played both nights in London. Like, this is one that, outside of this show, it's a damn near guarantee. And obviously it was very weird that at the Ohana shows, I don't think they played it every night at those Ohana shows either. So they can go a show without playing it, and it can be okay. And like you mentioned, all throughout this episode, it can come back and feel really, really good when it comes back and feel special again. So yeah, that's all what the situation is here, and that is the end of the main set, 20 songs. Let's pause for station identification before we get into the encore and talk a little bit about what we have going on Patreon, and obviously the series of covering the reaction shows for Europe are over since the European tour is over. But if you wanted to go back and check any of those out, it is Patreon the way to do that. And before we get into thanking some people, and before we get into other things and letting you guys know about Patreon, there are going to be Patreon related episodes coming in August, we promise. And it would be a great time to do them because September, we're getting right back on the bandwagon as much as we can, depending on what they decide for those shows. There might be some changes, who knows, because they got a big 3-headed monster in the middle of that tour for sure. But every single night that they do a show, we'll be reacting to it. We'll be doing the live set list updates again, so that stuff will be available on Patreon once again. But in August, I think you can finally expect that Nothing Man Evolution episode to come to fruition, and potentially one more Evolution episode. And potentially it might not have either John or I on it. I'll leave the suspense out there. But also we have to go back to our late night series as well.
Late night series, yep.
We got a grievance to do.
Yep, gonna be very good. Looking forward to it.
And look, if we get bored, we'll decide to do something else. There's no lack of things to do. And even if there was right now, and you haven't checked out the whole entire catalog, there is so much to go through. We've done 17 Evolution episodes. We've done the whole entire Bridge School series. We've done a lot of late night episodes, a lot of just excess episodes from anywhere, like smaller shows within their tour, anything from the Off-Ramp show to the Crocodile Cafe show in 1998 to a couple of 1992 shows here and there. It's all in our archives, and that's where you guys come along. And if you want that content, then it's all about joining Patreon. And we have the 3 tiers. The bonus leg tier is going to get you all of the exclusive stuff. We'll shout you out on the show, and you'll be part of a nice little team and group of people that really are passionate and care about this band. And the Giggle Leg tier is the next tier, and that will get you all of the above, as well as a requested episode for sometime in the future. Hey, sooner is better because we are getting that 2023 schedule filled up. I know it's almost August, but it's a common, man. We got a lot of stuff to do. There are a lot of anniversaries next year that we got to attend to. And then the Horizon Leg tier, which obviously we heard from Jenny earlier in this episode. She is a Horizon Leg patron, so she got her own Horizon Leg profile. And not only that, but if you go on liveonfourlegs.com, which all of the proceeds from the Horizon tier go directly to, you have a profile on there that you get to showcase yourself and tell your little Pearl Jam story. Everybody that is on the tier has one. It's a thank you for contributing and putting that much into the show. And hopefully that's something that you guys are into. And it'll be very interesting to talk about the Horizon tier in a second here, because we have not one new Horizon tier member today. We have two to thank. Let's mention the bonus leg because we don't want to forget about the bonus leg. So a big thank you goes out to Frederick Seaman. Thank you so much, Frederick Seaman. Don't laugh. Don't laugh.
No.
Be nice. Joining up on the bonus leg tier. And then we have not one, but two that joined up to the Horizon leg. The first person joined up is William Wallace. However, I have my doubts that that's his actual name because he has a Scottish flag on his Twitter profile. So I'm not sure, but I'm going to call him William Wallace right now. If freedom is what he wants, then freedom is what he gets. I don't like what, any quote from Braveheart that you want to give, but we're very thankful that he now has the freedom to go through the archives and check out any episode that he wants and then get his Horizon Leg profile at some time. That's a very, very cool thing. And we're also going to thank good friend of the show, Aaron Redman. Aaron was somebody that when the West Coast shows were happening, he was our guy on the scene, kind of like how Aurelian was. And, there weren't a lot of live streams to begin that. So Aaron was really our guy on the scene, was telling us everything that happened, and we were directing it back to you. So he's a very vital part of what Live on Four Legs was doing this year. He wrote a couple of great write-ups on liveonfourlegs.com talking about his time in Los Angeles, talking about his time in Phoenix. If you want to seek those out, feel free to. And now Aaron is Horizon Leg patron, very smart Pearl Jam fan. It'll be a very interesting conversation and interesting to see what show he picks too, because I think he's been to a bunch of really good ones. So I don't doubt that he's going to pick one of the best stories, and he's a good storyteller. So thank you to everybody. Thank you to Aaron. Thank you to Frederick, and thank you to William Wallace, I suppose.
Yeah,
and
that's great. Thank you guys so much. Yeah.
Of course. Yep. And we're working up to the goal. Look, we're coming very close to 200 episodes. And the goal here, if we don't hit it, it's just kind of a fun thing, but we would love to hit 200 patrons by the time we get to 200 episodes. So if you want to chip in just $1 a month just for that, or chip in the $10 a year, that's basically the same tier as the $1 a month. Feel free to. Let's get to a goal. If we get there, we'll do something good for that, and we'll pick out a charity, or we'll pick out somewhere to send some of that funding to. So patreon.com/liveonfourlegs, or you can go on liveonfourlegs.com and click on the orange Become a Patron button and do it that way. Either way, it gets you the stuff. So thank you, everybody, for listening to that and joining in on that. And also keep liveonfourlegs.com bookmarked as always. And even if the tour is not going on right now, there's always stuff to check in on. So keeping that open for you guys. All right, let's get back to the rock. To begin this, Ed comes out and he says, I don't mean to keep you waiting. He's by himself. Anybody got to go to bed, and keeps going on like, oh, there are people that are here that need to go to bed. So if you got to get to sleep, get to sleep. And he kind of says there's a good news, bad news situation. The bad news is that we have to come here about a week early in order to get acclimated because you get fucking out of breath here. And he's like, wait a minute. No. That's the good news. So we have to come in a week early. Then there's a situation. He says he can't hear somebody in the crowd and asks if they are okay. And is looking at somebody, and he's like, wait a minute, did her water just break? Her high-pitched voice kind of sounded like her water just broke. And he wanted to check on her for a second.
She's screaming, I love you, Eddie. I love you, Eddie. I love you, Eddie, like over and over again. It gets to the point of like, it's getting annoying.
And Ed doesn't like his name being called anyway. So, right. But he's like, nope, that's just a broken water bottle instead. and then mentions this song is written about a place, and if I realized that the words were adjusted, it could illustrate how we were feeling today. This song was originally written as Santa Cruz, but this version could be called Telluride.
Heading east, the compass reads. Look at our speed, we're going 63. Out the windows, the trees go green. I look at them and they look at me. Got Neil Young on the stereo. He comes along whenever I go. But something different as I hear him now. Heading east on a familiar ride. I can feel the lifting of my eyes. I can see a new horizon wide. Got a feeling I just can't hide. Pulling into Telluride. Got an old friend, he remembers me from way back when we were 17. We got kids and we're older now. When I see him, we're still 17. I need the mountains to set me free. I need the wind to make me breathe. I need the waterfalls to wash my soul. I need my loved ones to let me go.
It was a Christmas single from 2008, as we mentioned earlier in the show. Been played at one other time, Birch School 2010. And the lyrics are an obvious change to fit the atmosphere here, because Santa Cruz is more about the beach and more about, being in the sun and more about being at the water. And this is more about the mountains and the waterfalls and the other stuff that's surrounding this area. So I thought it was a really nice little way to bring a song that doesn't get thrown into the fold too much and kind of change it up to really bring character to the area that they're in, that they've talked about all show, how much they really enjoy and appreciate. And unlike Angel, it's not one I think about too often. I do think about Angel sometimes. I do kind of get it into my head. I don't think about Santa Cruz too much. I just don't. It's one of those that it just kind of gets forgotten a little bit. And it's not that it's a bad song or anything like that. It's just one that you can't put it on a Spotify playlist or anything. So, or maybe you can. Maybe the Christmas single's on it. I'm not sure. But yeah, it's got a nice vibe. And they change it up. And I think that kind of, to start out the encore doing that, it gets a lot of people back into the mood.
Yeah, you could sit any Pearl Jam fan down and ask them to start naming songs, and you would be there a long time before you got to Santa Cruz for most of them, I think. And yeah, another one that we just never thought would ever be played again. But I give Ed a lot of credit for this, because you can tell that he worked on it. Like, he changed up the rhyme scheme, made it fit, like made the rhymes fit with Telluride instead of Santa Cruz, and like it's very well done, and he gets through it, and like, okay, he worked on that. Like, he spent time doing that, which is pretty cool to think about. Like, he took time out for this little song that was just going to be a couple of minutes here and made it special and, for this crowd, and gave them something to remember. So yeah, I think this is great. I love the song again. Give me the weird Pearl Jam songs, give me the obscure Christmas single that hasn't appeared anywhere else. Obviously this was not on Lost Dogs. So yeah, very, very cool.
Not just one, but two Christmas singles that weren't on Lost Dogs. One that could have been, and this one obviously couldn't be, but who knows when that Stray Cat record is coming out anytime soon.
Someday, yeah.
We're hoping for it, right?
Yep.
Ed pays some respects to the other bands that played that day, like Band of Heathens, Little Hurricane, and Highly Suspect, and the Dirty Knobs. And the Dirty Knobs features Tom Petty's guitarist from the Heartbreakers, Mike Campbell, and apparently call him Gator in the band. So this one is for him, and it's I Won't Back Down, because that's the Tom Petty one that they usually go back to. I thought perfect song for the outdoors once again. It's one that soars. It's one that everybody sings back to.
Well, I know that's right. I got just one life. Oh, in a world that keeps on pushing me around, I'll stand my ground. Oh, and I won't back down. Hey, baby. Hey, I'll stand my ground, and I won't back down. Go big, that is like, hey, baby. I stand my ground, and I won't back down. No, no, I won't back down. No, no, I won't back down.
I want to get your take on it, and then I have a random thought, so I'm going to leave it there.
The crowd on this, fantastic. This is not a big, arena crowd that's going to be singing along with everything. Like, it's a festival crowd. Everybody knows this song. So I thought that this was one of the big crowd moments we hadn't really gotten a lot of on this night. Yeah, I thought it was great. What you got?
I'm glad you mentioned that because, yeah, like this is a transcendent song. Like anybody can play this in any sort of set. Like, you bring it to a hip hop show and people might know it. You bring it, I know that's a little bit of a stretch. You bring it to, I don't know, like, think of any classic rock, think of any like psychedelic rock, think of any punk, like the whole entire crowd is going to know this.
I'm picturing like you've got me thinking of like I'm picturing like a beat to it now, like it needs to be sampled by someone if it hasn't
it does
been
have
already.
a little bit, and look, you got to think of the Petty version, not just the Ed version here, which is solo and on electric. This one is. Here's my thought that I don't want to get away from is that it doesn't feel like Pearl Jam has that song that if anybody were to play it in any setting, that the whole entire crowd can sing along with it and love it. I don't think they have a song like that.
Alive, maybe.
Even so, it doesn't quite have that I won't back down vibe,
Yeah,
but there are also
maybe.
very few songs that do.
Oh, sure.
It's a special
Yeah,
song.
one in a million.
Alive could happen. I think Jeremy could happen, but like, think about it. If Elderly Woman was a hit, or if Black was a true like number one single, those could have been songs covered in any situation that people would have sang back to the band.
Yeah. Yep.
But they decided that wasn't going to be the route for them. So, yeah, they don't have that. And I think most Pearl Jam fans would probably say something along the lines of, "Oh, that's not their song. That's our song to like." So, we'll leave that conversation there, but just wanted to bring it up because it doesn't ever get brought up. Smile, Give and Fly, Comfortably Numb, all in this section here. Smile is dedicated to David's brother Mikey, who had passed away by that point. And what I noticed out of Smile was that, or Ed starts with more of the second verse's intensity, which is interesting. And you're thinking to yourself, like, okay, how's he going to top the second verse? And he kind of can't. He does that whole thing twice. I don't know if I've ever heard something like that before out of Smile.
Yeah, could have been just, some of the energy coming off of I Won't Back Down. He was still kind of jacked up from the crowd reaction and was really feeling it, yeah.
Going back to the numbers on played then into how much has been played now, I think Smile is a very interesting case because going into this show, this was the 71st time that it was played, which is pretty criminal since it's been around since 1996. That was the 20th year anniversary.
Yep.
And it's been played 11 times since. So
not bad.
This song has had a really good late in life sort of, you want to call it a career to it. Like it's kind of in that same category as Low Light.
Yeah, I'll go with that. And it's found a home in that encore spot. Give Jeff a chance to show off on the guitar there a little bit.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah, it's a fun moment for everybody, and obviously emotional for a lot of people. We've seen emotional dedications for it just like this, and yeah, you really can't go wrong with a performance of Smile. It is the influx of No Code in the set along with Off He Goes, which is never a bad thing. Given to Flying Comfortably Numb, I don't know how I felt about these being back to back. It just felt like after Given to Fly, you wanted to go into something more energetic again instead of going back down into sort of a mid-tempoed, chilled out cover.
Again, it's the influence of the venue and the environment is that they're going to go for those soaring, epic kind of songs here late to bring it home. And from Given to Fly on, this just does not let up as far as, each song is more epic than the last until we get to Yellow Ledbetter. I thought Given to Fly was great. Love to see it getting a more priority spot here. And even Comfortably Numb, which I actively dislike that song, I thought here it sounded, again, just epic. And I thought Mike really added something to the solo and really was really feeling it. I think, again, if it gets played in an arena, if it gets played in a ballpark, like pass. But I think having it be here in this kind of special venue and special moment really added something to it. So I didn't hate it.
Well, you're not wrong, but that's not what I was expecting you to say at all.
Yeah.
So my thoughts didn't really come from the factor of you not liking the song. It just came from the two songs are a little bit different, and Given to Fly, you kind of want to build off of that. But as you mentioned, it does feel pretty epic towards the end here. And we have 4 more songs to sort of carry this one home. And that's going to go Black and Crazy Mary first, though. There's some space in between the all B where he holds out the B line and I Know Someday You'll Have a Beautiful Life. There's some space in between that. That seems like it's pretty rare. That there is space because I like the build into getting to that next line being the big cathartic moment of the song instead of just an immediate transition as you always get. Like you hear the all I'll be, yeah, and then you go right into I Know Someday I'll Have a Beautiful Life, all that. I don't know if it was intentional or not, but the extension on that just, again, kind of felt like there was a build to the big moment instead of the moment just happening.
Yeah, and again, I don't think we have video for this part of the set, so
we do not. No,
it would have been nice to see if there was something going on that led to that. But yeah, it just adds to the tension, right? Anytime you're stretching out those moments, it's gonna build the tension up, which is always good in a song like Black.
Going back to that video thing, it's a real shame that there's not like a full professional cut of this, because this would be the one that you'd think maybe Pearl Jam would have had it live streamed over COVID and stuff like that, but it didn't get picked. But this would be the one. I think that the visuals would be the best for them, obviously, but who knows what they did with that. And hitting home at the end of this, obviously Mike is going to go off, but it's just pure fun. It doesn't have like the soulful mourning type solo where he's digging deep into his heart to bring out something heart-wrenching. It's fun rock and roll. It's fun rock and roll, bringing it with something pretty chilled out and smooth, and you gotta love it. Like it's one of their best. It definitely soars, absolutely. In between Crazy Mary, because you have to talk a little bit about Boom in the show, which I don't think he had.
The only other time I've seen stars like you'll see tonight or like was out last night was in the far reaches of some Hawaiian island where it was absolutely deserted and there was nothing around. but it's incredible to see the same thing here. But someone who came from that spot, and now we get to see this place together for the first time. On the B3 organ, the keyboards, Mr. Boone Gaspar.
Man, you can really tell the air has definitely gotten to Ed a little bit in this version of Crazy Bear. There's a lot of heavy breathing, a lot of breaking up on the line. So, you got two more left, and he's gonna leave it all out there for that. But boy, it's definitely Ed taking a toll on him. You can tell.
Yeah, they probably shouldn't have played this long at this show. He's never going to be one to pull out and be like, maybe I'll just give 50% tonight. Yeah, you're in the 27th song here. He's definitely feeling it.
Crazy Mary was only 6.5 minutes long too. It was like a 2000s version.
It's about average. Sometimes they stretch it out, but there wasn't really a back and forth long duel. It was really Boom doing the Painted Black, and then Mike joins in for the co-op mode, and they shoot off into the stratosphere. But not a long duel like some of the ones that we've seen. But it just depends on the mood.
The duel was interesting because it seemed like they kind of didn't know where to go with it at first, and it didn't really seem like it was a duel, like you said. It seemed more co-op, and it needed a little bit of time to pick up steam before it got to where you really like this to be, but it did get there. Even had a little bit of spiraling to madness toward the end of that. I kind of like that. So that's going to lead you into the end of this, though. Alive, Yellow Ledbetter. And Alive's just very powerful. I think you mentioned that every single one feels epic. I thought that Alive kind of defined that idea. It feels like it had bite, and Ed is kind of singing those lyrics with some bite. And to round out the way that the beginning of this night was something that you kind of eased into, where it's daylight and you're enjoying your surroundings. And now, the lights went out. I believe they played until 9:50, if I'm not mistaken. So it's getting close to 10 o'clock. It's kind of like the party hour, if you want to say, being outdoors. And yeah, this is when they were really able to go off and really able to kind of leave the show on a really, really good point here.
This might be the best version of Alive that I heard in the 2010s, period. Like, this is one that I'll definitely go back to, because I was really blown. Because, you get to the end of a set like this, and you're thinking, okay, like, you look at it and you're like, okay, Alive, Yellow Ledbetter, we're going to start winding down. It's going to be celebration time. But they were really putting everything they had into Alive, especially it sounded just huge coming out of the speakers, and was very impressed, especially, the way Stone and Mike are playing together. It sounded very, very good. And Cameron, like I said, just adding a little bit of bite to it, as well as that really spotlighted version of Alive here. One of the best I've heard in a long, long time.
Yep, and that's going to lead, of course, you don't have Rockin' in the Free World or anything like that, which I think is appropriate for this. I don't know why, but it feels like Alive, Ledbetter, Say Goodbye feels like the right call on this. And Ed's thanking everybody, the Shaka, Chicken Skin, whatever. Lots of good books out there. Sleep good. And Ledbetter, of course, is the one that everybody's going to have their arms around each other and celebrate a really good night. And of course, Mike's got a couple of great moments to go after it, especially at the ending where he gets the spotlight in this. It leads to a good end to a memorable night. Like, you can't get much better than that, right?
Did you say chicken skin? What was that?
Yeah, he said chicken skin. He said chicken skin. I swear.
Okay. Yeah, I thought you were just saying shaka, but yeah, just Yellow Ledbetter's. It's the culmination of everything of the show, and it's a way for them to say goodbye and appreciate, not just the crowd but the venue and the whole, like, evidently the whole week that they were there. So yeah, it needed to be this, absolutely.
All right. Now we get to go back and talk about what we just talked about. So with that, it's John's turn this week to go first.
Yeah. Good show here. Hard to pick just top 3 moments because a lot of good ones early on with the sit-down acoustic set. Honorable mention to Off He Goes and Society, which I thought worked up really cool. My number 3 moment, we just talked about it. It's going to be Alive, coming off of something that late in the show to really stand out and really impress was very cool. And I definitely sat up and took notice of the way it sounded. Very, very impressive. My number 2 moment is going to be Daughter, when the karaoke winners get to come out and that moment with their hanger-on friend. And then not just for that, but also for the really good WMA tag where they actually get into a little bit of WMA, the song. Thought that was very impressive and a cool moment.
Which, John, I have to say that they would never have invited me on stage if I ever won any sort of karaoke competition. Just to I don't know if they don't want to be upstage or anything, but
they've seen you do Go, and maybe that'll be your big moment now.
Well, because Ed probably can't do it anymore, right?
We'll see. My number 1's going to be Angel. Almost 700 shows, like I said, and never thought it would come back. And the way they were able to kind of rework it and, give Dave a little bit of a shout out there. And very, very cool. And I think that's, like I said, when watching this set list live, that was the moment I remember, like, holy fuck, like, that immediately cemented the show in my brain as being special and like one that I definitely had to go back and listen to. So Alive, Daughter, and Angel.
Yeah, one of those is coming back for sure. My number 3 is going to be I Won't Back Down, for all the things that we talked about with the crowd just sounding terrific on it. And you need one that the crowd is just going to go off on. And some of the stuff, as great as the first 10 were in the campfire build up to there, like Elderly Woman and Maybe Just Breathe, those were the sing-alongs, and Nothing Man were the sing-alongs. But it wasn't like sing-along after sing-along after sing-along. And they really had to wait a while to get to something like I Won't Back Down to really be heard. And when they did it, they just knocked it out of the park. I think the crowd was really waiting for something like that. My number 2 is going to be one that you had as an honorable mention there, and it's going to be Off He Goes. And
cool.
It's because we haven't really covered the song in a long time, because some eras it doesn't really hit too often in, and we haven't done 1996 too much this year. So yeah, it was nice seeing this one and hearing this one again, and it really felt like a very positive vibe coming out of it, very anthemic vibe. And I feel like out of all the things and songs that brought out the happiness of the day, like, this one just felt like it defined all that. And number 1, I'm with you. It's Angel. When you look at this set on paper, that stands out. A couple things stand out, like Society and Santa Cruz, of course, but Angel is really the one. And you see that 699 number, and you're like, that's just impressive. But it's really the one that you would think that before that time never, ever, ever would have came back. And to see it back played the way it was and reworked a little bit the way it was really well done by the band. Now we get to find out what we're going to rate this day.
Oh, this one's a little tough because it's such a unique kind of a show. I thought it was very, very impressive. I'm going to give it a 9.5.
Oh, damn. Wow. So it's not a Hall of Famer. However, for me, I think it is a 10. You don't get a lot of these. You just don't. And it's one thing to just do an acoustic beginning and say, oh, well, it was here. But it's another thing to have a theme of the day. And when you have good shows that bring out the theme of the location or the mood and that kind of create a mood, those are some of the best. And this absolutely did. And it didn't just do that with songs that we're all used to. It did that with the Angel and surprise moments. Like Society had to be, especially after Angel, where you're like, okay, maybe some people don't know what the hell this is, but Society, everybody knows what that one is. Santa Cruz, same. Not a lot of people know what that is, but following right back on that, I Won't Back Down, that was only 11th time being played, so that's super rare too. They had played it in 2016 a little bit, but it's still considered to really not be a part of the Pearl Jam setlist at that point. So, yeah, I think with all that, and I think with the mood that they created for this show, and I think that with a lot of these performances, especially how the band was feeling, the way that Ed communicated with the crowd, I think it has every aspect of being a well-regarded Pearl Jam show, along with all the other shows that deserve this treatment within the acoustic set. I think it's a 10 right along with them. It didn't get into the Hall of Fame. Got into the Hall very good, I suppose.
Everything can't.
No, it's true. I wasn't anticipating that this one was going to be a lock, and I also said to myself, I'm like, this is a 10, whether or not John says it was a 10 or not. So we've had that before. We've had shows fall just short, and that's not a bad thing, because that means after all the 10s, and there could be like 30 of them at this point, this one can fall at 31, and that's okay. So just putting that out there. Let's talk about some plans for the next couple of weeks before we're hitting into September and some important stuff into September, because that's all of what we're really leading into. Next week is not going to be that. Next week, we're going to do something that was a request, another Horizon Like patron request from Danny Tatlow. And we're going to do, surprisingly, we talked about very, very early on. A couple of years ago, maybe early last year, 2020, we had this long-running joke that we didn't really do a lot of Canada shows because we didn't. We had one in 2 years, basically, that we had done, and that was Ottawa 2005. Then we got to the binaural show from Toronto, and then after that, we're like, okay, we promise Canadians. We promise we're doing more Canadian shows. And I think the first one that we did out of the gate that was a Canadian show was Saskatoon in 2005. And I believe on that episode, I said, well, we got a lot of other provinces and a lot of other cities that we have to do, that we have to cover. So it might be a while before we get to Saskatoon 2011. I don't know if this is considered a while. It's like over a year and a half or so, but we're doing Saskatoon 2011, which is, I think, following some of the themes from that first Saskatoon show. So it will be kind of nice to go back to some of those. But after that week, we're going to spend time on, again, as we did in April, we're going to spend time on the locations that Pearl Jam are going to be at and some of the best shows. You think about Denver, we'll do a show that was out of Denver. You think about Camden, we'll do a Camden show. We'll do a Hamilton show. We'll do Quebec City. St. Louis, right. We're not going to get to every single location because that might be impossible, especially because MSG, we've covered all those before. But we will do our best to kind of hype you up if you are going to these shows and kind of get you a little bit of the history of the last time that they were there. So before we do that, we're going to do Saskatoon because that's exactly where this falls and exactly what makes sense for everybody. So hopefully you guys are tuning in then. Hopefully you guys are checking out Patreon, patreon.com/liveon4legs. Hopefully you guys are checking out liveon4legs.com. Get that bookmarked. And hopefully you guys are subscribed. If you're not, subscribe to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. Leave us a rating if you'd like. Leave us a little comment if you'd like. All the help matters. This may be the end. We're here, but not for much longer. And although we may be parting ways, I miss you already. I miss you always. Keep here for the next couple weeks, and we're just going to keep preparing for the last leg of 2022. And by that, we're going to start with Saskatoon 2011. See you next week.
I have an appointment at noon in hell.
They're beautiful. That's everybody in the back. Hang on. Hang on. Shaka. Thanks again for a beautiful night. Much love. Chicken skin. Hey. Very nice people. A lot of good books out there. Thank you. Sleep good.